Welcome to The Quiet Truth, where a lay Catholic evaluates situations and judges sinful behavior. I'm Tom Borek with today's episode, Half the Parents, 6 Times the Sin. You'll remember that last time we were considering the dilemma faced by our hypothetical father, Max. He's got 2 small children and a wife, and he's thinking about leaving. He's thinking that he may enjoy life better if he's on his own for a while, and maybe finds another woman that he prefers to his wife. We made the rather obvious point that if Max leaves, he deprives his children of his financial support, at least to some extent, and he deprives his children of his time, his parental guidance, parental care, and parental love. Today we're going to talk about some other aspects of this situation. It turns out that in addition to just the bare financial and reduction in parental time, there's also the fact that depriving the children of a father or depriving the children of a mother makes a qualitative difference in the care that they receive. It turns out that men and women are different and that the effect of their love on children is different. Fathers tend to help their boys become mature, virtuous men, at least when they're good fathers, and they help their girls to prepare for a trusting marital relationship. Good mothers, on the other hand, tend to help girls become mature, virtuous women, and they help their boys prepare for trusting marital relationships. As a result, depriving children of a parent of a particular gender has particular problems associated with it, and those are all borne out by the research. People who deny those differences are really on shaky ground. From a Catholic perspective, there's a couple of other really serious problems with abandoning a family. One is that you're going back, or Max is going back, on a very serious, solemn promise, perhaps the most important promise that he has made or ever will make in his life. Now, of course, the 21st century secular culture doesn't put a lot of value on honesty or integrity or promise-keeping, but that's a subject for another video. Another problem from a Catholic perspective is that unless the circumstances are really unusual, by leaving, Max risks leading others into sin, persuading other fathers that they can abandon their children, and perhaps other mothers into believing that they should abandon their children. And Max, like all of us, really can't afford that burden of guilt. Another problem with breaking up the 2-parent Catholic family is the overall subject of these Quiet Truth videos, and that is the pervasive effects of the foolish and evil messages conveyed to us constantly by the media and other outlets of the secular culture. These are messages that threaten to overwhelm our minds, our hearts, and our brains, and to drown out even the simplest of truths. The Catholic family must, in these times, use every resource at its disposal, use all the time and energy and love of 2 parents in order to protect children from these messages. They must protect their children in 2 ways. First, by limiting the quantity of these messages that get through to their children. And that involves a lot more supervision and control than is expected in the secular culture. And secondly, they have to deal with the messages that do get through. They have to analyze them, pull them apart, and refute them, and teach their children how foolish and evil they are. It takes 2. It takes at least 2. It's an enormous job. Now, the secular culture claims to value the health and well-being of children, yet it tells us over and over again that the 1-parent family or the 0-parent family is just as good as any other family, that it's just another lifestyle choice. The result of these messages is that parents feel freer than ever before to abandon their children, or their spouses, or their unmarried co-parents, and consequently, more and more children are put at risk, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Catholics must recognize these situations as tragedies. We must be the voice of sanity in a culture that's gone at least a bit insane. We must witness to atheists, agnostics, and other non-Catholics that these situations are always tragedies to be avoided. Repeat after me. The death of a young mother is always a tragedy. The death of a young mother is always a tragedy. The death of a young father is always a tragedy. The death of a young father is always a tragedy. Any parent leaving his or her child is a tragedy. Whenever two parents leave a child or children to be raised by non-parents, that's a tragedy. In other words, depriving a child of one of its parents, depriving a child of two live-in parents, is always a tragedy. Imagine another kind of tragedy. Amy and Barb are two young women in their late teens. Amy's mad at Barb because Barb said that Amy's hair was gross. So Amy pushes Barb in the path of an oncoming bus. Barb loses both legs just above the knee, but she perseveres. She gets therapy. She works hard. Eventually, she runs and wins a marathon. She becomes famous. She does well in her career. She raises a fine, loving family. She has a wonderful life. We don't pity Barb. We respect her. She overcame a tragic situation. But we don't pretend that it wasn't a tragic situation. We don't condone Amy's behavior as just creating a new lifestyle for Barb to live out. Let's change the situation just a little bit. Imagine that Barb didn't get physically injured, but that her parents abandoned her when she was an infant and left her to be raised by her Uncle Bob. And let's suppose further that she does very well for herself. She wins a marathon, she becomes famous, she does a great job with her career and with her family life. Again, we don't pity her, we respect her. But we respect her not because she never had a tragedy in her life, but because she overcame what was clearly a tragedy, what was clearly the result of sinful behavior on the part of her parents. Now, some tragedies are unavoidable, and other tragedies are the result of sin. So if a parent is struck by lightning or dies in a freak accident, that's tragic, but it's not sinful. Other times, this one-parent family results from the sin of one. As, for example, in Max's situation, if he leaves the family solely because he has this whim that he might be happier by himself, that's a tragedy caused by the sin of one parent. Other times, the breakup is the cause of two parents. Consider the situation in which both parents kind of lose interest in each other, lose interest in the marriage, and go their separate ways. And let's suppose that one spouse is losing interest because the other spouse is beginning to show his or her age. And let's say that the other spouse is losing interest because the other person has lost their earning capacity and is now working at a less lucrative job. If they break up for these reasons, two people's souls are in jeopardy. Two people have sinned. In a similar way, when two unmarried persons have sex and a child results, that's the result of the sin of two people. And that's true regardless of whether one parent decides to raise the child or not. It was still the sin of both persons because both persons put that child at risk by engaging in sexual behavior without the solemn promise to maintain a permanent family unit and to raise that child together as long as the child needs that assistance. More on the sins and near occasions of sins that create tragedies for families, for children, and for millions of souls in our next episode, The One-Parent Family, Reducing the Risk. Thank you for your kind attention.